The male equivalent to that is, am I competent?
Yeah.
Can I get it done? Can I affect the world around me? And I don't know why God made us that way. There's a complement to it. I think it probably has echoes of Genesis. This is generally, by design and by aim, this is a show for dudes.
Yeah.
Like, this is a show for men.
Okay.
And of course, I appreciate any female viewers of the show.
Yeah.
But I mean, personally, I have, I'm trying to understand and figure out this puzzle as to why men don't like or are not interested in, or even if I say this, it sounds like there'd be a lot of men clicking off, scared of faith and psychology, both of those things, therapy, the interior experience.
Yeah.
And I struggle to understand how to make such an important thing attractive to men. And I want to, but we have a resistance. Maybe part of this is cultural constructs of masculinity and the stiff upper lip and being tough and muscling through things and being in control and governing and headship and competency. I mean, here we are talking about you feeling like you've been broken down and you've like developed things like compassion and relationality and humility. And like, these are all typically feminine virtues.
Right.
And so like, how can that be made attractive to men? Why would a dude ever watch this show? Unless we were talking about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, or another interesting thing. I'm trying to get in the habit of asking my guests, when's the last time you thought about the Roman Empire? History. Like, history is an important space in the male psyche. It's like, I'm cool learning about other people's history and their lives and and I can learn lessons from their mistakes, but I don't want to look at myself and I don't want to look at my own history. So I'm not even sure if there's a question in here somewhere. I mean, if you have any insight.
Well, that's why that's why I say it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. I wrote a dissertation on this, but it's like, I think I understand it theoretically, but it doesn't mean I've helped move the needle, which is I wrote my dissertation on developing a form of therapy, of psychotherapy for men, which develops the virtue of courage. Because there's two types of male psychologies nowadays, like on a spectrum. One would be like the super macho, narcissistic male who's exploitative, doesn't care about the interior life, like hurts women. And then we have like the kind of wimpo dude who has no headship, no self-governance, no authority, is indecisive, right?
Yes.
And actually women tend to lean towards the jerk, because there's something like almost naturally masculine about those qualities. And they're not interested in the more sensitive male. But in either case, I argued that both of these men are scared, right? This is more obvious. I mean, I even labeled him wimp, right?
Sure.
It's almost like a fear of maturing. And then this one is frightened of vulnerability, of intimacy, of sharing who I am for fear of rejection. So I know that to be the case, but to still make it attractive and say, well, actually the most courageous, masculine thing you could do would be to face yourself. Yeah. It's still a tough sell.
Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I've been puzzling on this experience that I had. It's probably about 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
In light of this question, because they're related.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at this men's retreat for, they're all 1%ers and earners. Minimum was probably like 20 to 25 million in net worth. Mm-hmm. Maximum was double digits in billions, like big time. And then there's me.
My kind of people.
Right, yeah. And then there's me. I'm like, what am I doing here? But I was there. And I was listening to this talk from this guy who was talking about how he wants to help you learn how to win at home. And I thought, have I talked to you about this before?
I know, but I know the type. Yeah, but go on.
He's like, that's what the topic of the talk was. It was win at home.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, win at home. This is a laughable phrase.
But the men there were eating up.
I thought I was gonna laugh with these guys, like slightly, mock this poor man who's trying to make a living.
Yeah. And
they were all enthralled.
Yeah.
And I was trying to you expected it, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But afterward I was talking to them, and they were just like, I go to work and I know exactly what to do
yes.
to get what needs to get done.
Yeah. And
then I come home.
Yeah.
And it's a complete mystery, and I don't know how to win there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Is there a specific question, or
what are your thoughts on? I think they're related, right?
Yeah, they are. Related. No, they are. I think there's a way you can try and frame it in a way that's attractive to men. I mean, I've even heard, you've seen that YouTube video of the nail in the female's head.
Yeah,
it's like the common problem of the male trying to fix the woman's feelings and the woman just trying to feel understood. And you can almost try and systematize empathy. Like, if you want to win, like, just listen. Like, the next step in your strategic approach to solving this issue, this problem, is to be empathic. I don't think that actually works long term, because then it becomes like rote and not actually engaged. It becomes a methodical step.
Yes.
So it's so I've heard that kind of framing before. I think. Have you ever heard of I bet you have. Have you ever heard of the book Wild at Heart?
Yes.
And the first time I read that book, there were chapters in it that were just heart-wrenching for me. And it's not a Catholic book. He's a Protestant, John Eldridge, but that book like took off. I think he had some issues with his theology, obviously, from a Catholic perspective, and I also had some issues in him actually playing a bit too much into the idea, like the masculine construct idea, like you're a man only if you're out in the woods.
Yes.
And you're wrestling bears and hiking and like,
right.
Well, no, I mean, there are artists who are men, right? And so there's principles underneath that can be applied, but he was just applying it to one specific context. So to unearth and extract the principles, I think, has value. But one thing that I think he did a good job of, and him and his wife did a good job of, is getting down to, on some level, the psychological core question of each gender. And for the woman is, am I desired?
Yeah.
Am I wanted? And I think that resonates with women generally. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. I want to know if I'm worth X. Actually, proving that I'm worth X is just an extension of the core question. Am I wanted? Am I desired?
Yeah.
So you can see how am I beautiful is an extension of that. Am I attractive? Am I whatever? Am I wanted? The male equivalent to that is, am I competent?
Yeah.
Can I get it done? Can I affect the world around me? And I don't know why God made us that way. There's a complement to it. I think it probably has echoes of Genesis, where it's like, well, she has to work out her salvation through childbirth, and for him, it's about work, the sweat of his brow, and needing competency in the world, in the other, in the external to the home life, and so it's a place for competitiveness, which is related to competency, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And even that can be broken down, the concept of competitiveness, because you actually want other people to do their best. Otherwise, you're stepping on people, and that's not good from a spiritual perspective. So I think it just all seems to come back to this core question of competency, which on a natural level is very understandable as a man. Like, I want to be good at what I do.
Yeah.
And I want to be good if it's really stripped away and purified. And this is a hard place to get to because there's a lot of temptation. But if it's really stripped away and purified, I want to manifest God's glory. Like, I want to be, I want to mimic the Father. I can get into Lord of the Rings, talk about Ayule and creating the dwarves, and that's another topic.
We've gone there before.
Yeah. But it's I want to show my love by mirroring his omnipotency and being effective in the world around me. Now, that's fine, but our spiritual lives kind of turn that on its head. As you grow, as you become less competent as life goes on, you get, I always joke about getting balder, dumber, and fatter by the day.
Yeah.
And all those things that I hung my hat on were a source of pride, made me feel good about myself as I was younger. As I get older, the only thing I could remotely replace that is wisdom. You can continue to grow in wisdom. I'm not saying I'm wise, but I'm saying something to pursue.
Yeah.
Like you can't pursue competency. The only thing that you can continue to grow in competency is wisdom, which can't be separated from suffering. It's discovering meaning in suffering. And then you're supposed to become more childlike as you grow older too, and becoming more dependent upon God, which is like a diminishing of a sense of competency. It's saying, I can't do it. Can you do it for me? So I don't know. Maybe this, I mean, I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but maybe like what is natural to being masculine is something that needs to be broken down as you go deeper into your spiritual life. And we have a resistance to that because so much of our life, going back to our childhood, these ideas of what it like of our being loved was communicated to us based on our ability to perform. Like, I mean, my kid is now 5 and he's playing indoor soccer, and his social capital in that context is dependent upon whether or not he scores a goal.
Yeah.
And kids like him depending on how fast he is. And we get those messages very, very early on as men. So I don't know if there's any truth like that can be extracted from what I just said, but I think that is some of this plays into our resistance to it.
You're also talking about the cross we both bear, right? As men and women. So as a man, like the need to be capable is a cross you bear, because the death that you go through over life by becoming, balder, dumber, and fatter is that you become less and less capable of doing the thing that you're asked to do.
From a worldly perspective.
From a worldly perspective, yes. You become less and less capable. So it's like the journey is to become, is to try to maximize your capability in order to provide for your family, in order to do all these different things. And then it's like, along the way, you're also supposed to die to your attachment to that thing. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing for women. It's like, what is the cross of parenthood? Is that you're just going through your kid wanting you less. Mm-hmm. You spend 93% of your life.
And then the physicality fades, and it's harder for women to lose their, the natural glow of youth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like you spend 93% of your time with your kids by the time that they're 18. Mm-hmm. And so you're just not wanted, and it's natural for it. And so it's like you have to die to that. And most men, it's like they get to this, that I see who do explore the inner life, they do it at a crisis point, like their marriage is failing, right?
Right.
Or their kid is caught up in addiction, mm-hmm. or they get to the pinnacle, they get to C-suite, and they're like, well, shit, this isn't filling that hole.
Right.
And I sacrificed all this stuff to get here.
Right.
And it's not enough. Now what am I going to do? It almost is like you have to get to the place where the prize is, the veneer is taken off of it.
Yeah.